Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the 41st Hawaii International Film Festival presented by Halekulani. And today's discussion with director Jun Li. He is the director of the film Drifting from Hong Kong. Before we get started today, I just want to go over a few housekeeping bits. First, I want to let everyone know this film is presented as part of our Asian Cinerama program in partnership with the Academy the Asian Film Awards Academy in Hong Kong, with support from Create Hong Kong and the Film Development Fund of Hong Kong. We are also presenting this film as part of our Spotlight in Hong Kong, and we are very grateful for the support from the Hong Kong Economic Trade Office. So big mahalo to our sponsors for this film and for the sponsors for our discussion today. Before we get started, always a reminder, please stay tuned to HIFF.org throughout the festival for any program updates, changes, additions to the schedule. And also, this film is nominated for our HIFF Audience Award, so please do not forget to vote. You can vote online in Cinesend by using the 5-star feature to vote for this film. So definitely do that when you get a chance. I think that is pretty much it for my housekeeping bits today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce director Jun Li, who is joining us today.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. I really love this film, which I know that you both directed and wrote. And I think, part of what I really love about this film is that it has takes a much more social realism perspective on this community in Hong Kong. So, one of the things is that this film, I think, for us in Hawaii, really resonates because we have a lot of the same issues with the houseless community here in Hawaii in terms of folks being cleared off of the streets and their belongings being discarded. So it's a pretty regular occurrence here. So when I watched this film, I immediately resonated with what's happening here at home. So I wanted to start by asking, I know that you specifically based this story on a court case from 2012 from a group of homeless folks in Sham Shui Po in Hong Kong. I wanted to find out how you heard about this story, what really attracted you to this case, and why you decided to adapt it into a film.
It was 2012 when the clearance happened and the court case happened, and I was a journalism student back then at Chinese U. So I actually reported on that case, and I think it's it's an incident that a lot of people in Hong Kong can recall. It's not like a big news, but it's like an incident that a lot of people who have been through that time recall. And it was a very because it was a very cold night, and all their possession got cleared, and then they don't have anything for the night, and then and I did that story back then, and I didn't think about making that a script until the whole street, the buildings, the whole block was torn down, and now it's rebuilt into a very expensive condo. That was the point that I thought I would have to write a script about it, because a lot of people come and go, and they don't witness the things that happen in the longest span of time, right? But some of us remember what happened on that block like 8 years ago, and when we see all these expensive condos built, right? So it's depicted in the opening sequence of the film, and so one of the blocks, the last shot of the sequence what is the block that the original incident happened. Um, I still feel very surreal and shocked when I go there because I went to school in Shamshui-Po. So I went to school. My secondary school was in Shamshui-Po. So I I I go past that block every day, and the whole block was torn down. It was very surreal, and the story of this group of street sleepers, this community, they witnessed the whole thing from the ground in front of them, and that is why I think I wanna depict this group of people in a feature film.
Yeah, because it's about this group of people and that incident, but it's also about a broader issue of gentrification of the neighborhood, which Shamshui-Po is traditionally a very working class
Mm-hmm.
local neighborhood in Hong Kong, and that has been experiencing a lot of gentrification and changes over these years. So you're
Mm-hmm.
sort of looking at that broader issue as well as the immediate issue of this group of folks sleeping on the street.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so you said that say homelessness and gentrification, it happens. I mean, it's a global phenomenon, but it also happens very differently in different places.
Mhm.
So it works in different ways, and um, the target and different vulnerable groups of people in the city. So well, I am just presenting what I see from my point of view in Hong Kong in Shantou.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and following up on that, you take a very realistic approach to your portrayal of Faye and the other Phi, sorry, and the other characters in the film, and you don't shy away from some of the more difficult aspects of their lives, such as their drug use, for one example. And I
Mm-hmm.
was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, what was most important to you in your portrayal of this marginalized group.
Uh, well, it's my stance on the incidents is very obvious throughout the film, throughout the film. But at the same time, I think I have to be honest about the relationship, about the community, because drug use is a very obvious problem. Uh, I I didn't know before I did the report, and I for I mean when I first wrote about it, I also struggled as to how I depict the community, because I know there is a lot of stigma attached to
Mhm.
drug use, and there's a lot of stigma attached to homelessness. So how do you present the fact at the same time you don't harm your subject? So
Mhm.
it's a very difficult and it's a very difficult path for you for me
Mhm.
to walk through, that you don't shy away from the ugly side of it, because
Mhm.
these are the reasons why the authority uh, legitimize their clearance, legitimize the use of force to the vulnerable group of people. But at the same time, you don't take away that element out, and the film become dishonest about the community. So in order to achieve that, I mean, I depict different stages or different
Mhm.
status of drug use, I guess. So there are people who are more more in need, more addicted to drugs, to heroin. They use different kinds of drugs, and some of them try to try to be clean. Some of them have stayed clean for a while, and some of them use drugs because something happened, so they fall back into it. So these things happen, and in order to show the different states of it, you have to have an ensemble cast. You have to have many different people tackling the same life situation, but at the same time they have very different lives, but they live together. So from the very beginning, it's an ensemble film, because I don't want one character or one state of being become the the only one depiction of this place.
Right, because it's obviously everybody is different, and you're trying to present this community from a human. You're trying to present them as human beings in their faults as well as their assets. So you're looking at the whole picture, I think, and I see why you wouldn't want necessarily one person to be representative of a group so diverse in that process. I think one of the things that I also noticed, in addition to your sort of unflinching portrayal of all of the aspects of this community and their lives, was that you really stayed away from something that a lot of other films would perhaps do, which would be to offer sort of dramatic backstories for these characters that were in a way, I guess, what we would call a sob story, that would sort of justify the lifestyle that they're living. Like they have to have some dramatic history. And I think that you really stayed away from that sort of narrative device. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that choice, and also just developing sort of the stories behind the individuals in the ensemble.
Yeah. When you write a script, there are a lot of device to make that story happen, right? To focus on the backstory, or why they end up being here. It's an attempt to for us to to sympathize with the characters in a way that because his mother is just like mine, who was cruel, who abandoned him, something like that, or something you that makes you feel the character we're following is exceptional, and his circumstances is very unfortunate. So you have to so his action is legitimized, but the thought of that, or the reason why we have to do that is because we thought the characters is not legitimate enough, right? Because we deep down we have an assumption about drug users, that they saw the situation where they are in right now because they chose to take their first shot, and that is themselves to blame, and then that leads to a situation towards the clearance. But with that assumption, because that is a very normal assumption that happens to a lot of audiences I talk to too, but this assumption is, when I think about it, is not right, because no matter what they did before, or what leads to the homelessness right now, is not a legitimate reason for the authority to clear them out and put all their belongings to the truck. Because first of all, that's their belongings, and according to the law, that is the law was on their side, and and also in a in a just in my thesis or in my statement is that the people on the street should be treated with dignity, and the drug use is not a reason to legitimize the violence. So I mean, it's a very it's a very it's a very similar argument with some of the very prominent Black Lives Matter cases, right? So it's like no matter, it's good because with the person involved having a drug history or not is not a reason for the authority to kill them. So that is, I think that is the argument that we nowadays are making, that, and we don't need that backstory to back up the story, because the story is powerful enough that the authority shouldn't do that.
Yeah, because despite their history or their drug use, they're still human beings, and they still have human rights and deserve to be, as you said, treated with dignity. And I do agree that that's an issue that's really in the forefront of many social movements right now, definitely. Following up on sort of the topical conversation, and I know this is an ensemble cast, but of course, Francis Ng is kind of the lead in the film. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how he got involved with the project, and what, if any, preparation did you go through with him and the rest of the cast to prepare for these roles?
Oh, we sent him the script, and he said yes in like a few days.
Wow.
And he became on board. That's it. And he actually is a very observant person. So he did a lot of research on the state of drug users trying to quit, and the different state of how do you call that? The different state of using
withdrawal state?
Yeah, and substitute and different state of being, and when we are on set, because we are on the set is on the street. We never shoot in the studio, so we have always been shooting on the street. So when we were in the area, when there's a scene change or there's a shot change, he would just go on the street and hang out and look at how people on the street take drugs and look at them, and then sometimes we can't find him because it's like we can't find him on set, and then we realize he's on the street sitting with people over there, and then blend in with them. So he is a very, how do I call that? He's a very lonesome actor. So he walks around alone a lot, and he gets back, and then he's always stay in character throughout the shooting. So I think that is, and I heard, that's what I heard. He didn't ever tell me that. I heard he didn't get shower when he gets back, and so has to stay in that situation, I guess.
very very method acting,
Yeah.
really immersing himself in the role and in that community. Well, I think his dedication to the role and to this character really shows in his performance, which is fantastic in the film, as are the other key cast members in the film. So I know we don't have too much time. We want to not keep it too long for today's discussion, but I really also just want to follow up. So, what are your hopes? I think we talked a little bit about Black Lives Matter and other social movements sort of being at the forefront of our awareness these days. And so I just wanted to find out from you personally, like, what are your hopes for this film in terms of maybe shifting perceptions or awareness of communities such as this in Hong Kong?
I mean, obviously, the film is not suggesting a solution, but I think the theme of equality and human dignity and my stance against state violence of all places is stand in solitude with all others who are making the same effort. And I mean, I never imagine there's like a utopia where all these problems could be solved, but I always see this world as like the power is it's I mean, we struggle in different directions when we try to pull the whole situation into a better into a more or we have a vision of having more equal relationships, and then there are forces to force us into the vice versa. So all we can do is to keep trying and keep doing what we do and keep believing in what we believe and to always to be vigilant and be alert of our own power position in the whole situation.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and also maybe to be aware of a little bit more of our own biases against certain people, whether we see them, whether they're from a different community, or whether they're a houseless person on the street, just being a little bit more aware of their own humanity in our own lives. So, last before we go, I wanted to find out, this is your second feature film. So what is next for you now that drifting is out in the world?
I am now writing a script about, it's a more personal story about the relationship of me and my boyfriend and our long distance relationship, and how in this time, in this crazy time during these 2 years, how we experience how we experience this world together but separately, because we're in a long distance relationship. Now we're together because I'm in the US right now, I'm in New York right now, but we've been separated for a very long time by distance. So it's a more personal story that I'm writing right now.
Oh, it sounds great. I definitely look forward to seeing that one day as well. Well, thank you so much again for joining us and just having this conversation with me today. For those of you who are watching this discussion, and if you happen to be watching this discussion and you've not yet seen Drifting, please check it out. It is up, available on our HIFF Citizens streaming platform, and it will be available from the 15th to the 28th of November. So definitely check that out. Another just big mahalo to the Asian Film Awards Academy for their support for our Asian Cinerama program here at HIFF. And big mahalo to all of our board members, our sponsors, and our HIFF Ohana. Thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you again, Jun Li, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.